Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based YouTube channel that I try to bring you interesting commentary that's taking place throughout our country and our world. And this is coming straight out of the state of Georgia. That's been all over the national news and social media for the district attorney of Fulton County, who is Fani Willis, who's going after ex-President Trump, and she's in a little bit of hot water with her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. So there's a lot of things that have been taking place in the state of Georgia and Atlanta. And now you have this scenario with this gentleman, Eligio Bishop. He is the alleged Georgia sex cult leader who just got convicted and is going to serve life in prison for sexual assault. So here we go. The leader of the Carbon Nation cult, Eligio Bishop, will be spending the rest of his life behind bars for the R word. When he told the judge during his sentence hearing that he was not guilty and he wanted to fire his lawyer in the middle of the court proceedings. The leader of alleged cult accused of R, sexual assault, learned his fate on Friday afternoon, just 2 days ago. A jury found Eligio Bishop guilty on all counts, including R, false imprisonment, and charges related to revenge P videos. Bishop, who also goes by Nature Boy or Three God, is a leader of the Carbon Nation, which authorities characterize as a sex cult. Prosecutor says he sexually assaulted a former group member as she tried to escape and then posted the revenge P online on Twitter and other outlets. The trial gave an inside look into the operations of Carbon Nation and how Bishop and his followers use social media to promote their holistic lifestyle and teachings. His cult was called Melanin Nation previously before Carbon Nation. He felt that black people were more superior to due to their melanin than to our white counterparts. The accused leader of Carb Nation cult, Eligio Bishop, was found guilty of sexual assault and 4 other counts on Friday. Several of Bishop's former cult members spoke during his sentencing hearing held after the verdict was read. They described through tears how his actions impacted each of them. He said, "My soul belongs to him, and there was absolutely no saying no to him," one woman testified during his sentencing hearing. "You were our guy, but now you're a prisoner like you imprisoned us," another woman testified. During their statements, Bishop could be seen in a room in the DeKalb County Jail cutting it up, laughing. In the words of DeKalb County Superior Court Judge Stacy Heydrich, and talking to the bailiff. He was talking to the bailiff, he was laughing. Accused leader of the Carbon Nation cult was found guilty. Before being sentenced, Bishop addressed the judge. "I just want to say something to all of them," Bishop said. "Well, directed to me, please," Judge Heydrich interrupted. Bishop says, "Are you happy?" "I'm not answering any of your questions," the judge interjected. I forgive you," Bishop said, talking over the judge, "and I still love you." Bishop continues to appear to address the victims and his supporters, adding, "Kiss my girl for me." "All right, I just muted the courtroom. We're done with that," the judge said after his brief remarks. Prosecutors asked for the maximum sentence while the defense argued that he should be given life with parole based on his bad childhood and his lack of priors. So Bishop was born in New York. His parents died when he was young, and then he was in foster care and was adopted by a family that he accuses them of abusing him. And after he lived in New York, he moved to Atlanta, and he's 42 years old. He said, I would have been inclined to exercise some discretion if Mr. Bishop showed any remorse, guilt, or regret throughout this process. That's what the judge said. And I saw nothing during the trial but him laughing, cutting up, and looking shocked and surprised at all of the testimony, said Judge Heydrich. Mr. Bishop, you are a master manipulator and probably the classic definition of a narcissist that I have ever seen. The judge scolded him for taking advantage of lost souls looking for guidance or comfort and filling a void. She said he has caused potentially irreparable harm to individuals. She added that she hopes the victims can find some peace, hopefully beginning with the sentence. Judge Heydrich was not swayed and sentenced Bishop to life without parole. He was also sentenced to 10 years to serve consecutively. The sentences for revenge porn will be served concurrently. In addition, Judge Heydrich ordered that he cannot have any contact with the victims, either direct or indirect, which also includes posting anything online. She also told Bishop he cannot profit from any of his crimes by way of a book deal or other means. The defense has 30 days to file a motion for a new trial in the case. Many of his supporters were not in the courtroom for the verdict, but took issue with the judge's words. They called the case one-sided. One even said this is a setup, said Kaylee Buckner. These women are scornful. They are spiteful because they couldn't have Bishop to themselves. Bishop supporters say he will appeal the conviction. Only one witness for the defense spoke during the hearing on Friday due to their being barred from the courtroom for either inappropriate things said on the stand or outbursts caused by them while sitting in the gallery. So Bishop was arrested back in April 22 after a former member of his organization called the police. During a hearing a month after his arrest, DeKalb County Police Detective Monica Purisan testified that the woman, who Fox 5 Atlanta referred to as AV, reported to investigators on March 30th that she recently left Bishop's cult and that he had posted multiple videos of them having sexual relations on Twitter without her consent. AV told police Bishop had ordered other women in the group to hit her because she made a face at him. The woman then told Bishop she wanted to leave, and he told her to pack her things while the other women screamed at her. As she waited for a rideshare driver to pick her up, AV told investigators Bishop asked her to come say goodbye to him. He began to tell her how she was a B and that she was no longer allowed to leave, said Detective Panasian. She stated she began to essentially beg him to leave. And began to cry. She stated Mr. Bishop then began to attempt to have sex with her. She told him no, and he continued. The woman waited until the morning when most of the other people in the house were asleep, and then she snuck out. They said AV changed her phone number and ceased all contact with the cult 3 days after she left. The police said the woman discovered the videos online and called the police. So this individual, as I stated, came from a rough background. These guys that love to have these cults and mind manipulation. We have too many people in this world, especially women, that have had fatherless homes, and they are looking for some kind of leadership or fathership from another human being. So if you have a person that's very fragile and they get enthralled by somebody that can speak well and use psychological manipulation, this is how these cults are developed. It's also amazing in many of these cults where you see there are a high propensity of women and very few men, because polygamy is involved, and the cult leader wants to have sex with all the women and control them. He even had access to their ATM cards, their personal IDs. He had moved to Honduras when he initiated this back in the early 2000s, and he lived in an Airbnb, but he had his victims living in tents. They could not take showers. It was all holistic and naturalistic. You had to bathe in natural spring water and no soap. They said that there was a certain level of stench that was had accumulated, and you could smell it in the Airbnb building he was living in. He also went to Costa Rica. They were living off the land, off the grid, and that's how cults are developed: the mind manipulation, the separation, the isolation. And he claimed that he was the second coming of God. Doesn't this sound very similar to the David Koresh situation in Texas? Doesn't it sound very similar to Charles Manson and some of these other cults? There's a place in Washington, the state of Washington, called Ramtha, that's very cult-like. And you see that there is and then Ramtha is ran by a woman. But you see a lot of these guys that are male cult leaders that are using this whole, they are the second coming of the Messiah. But you would think God is for men and women. But as I said, the numbers are so skewed one way for there being a high propensity of women versus men. I don't know if that's it, that men are a little harder to manipulate versus an insecure woman. But he had several victims. They couldn't shower. They defecated outside. They couldn't use indoor bathrooms. As a matter of fact, when he left Costa Rica to come back to America to go to Atlanta, one of the airlines wouldn't even let him on because he smelled so bad. There is psychological trauma that was going on with Mr. Bishop, and there was definitely psychological trauma going on with the victims that decided to be a part of his cult. And as I said, he thought black people were more superior than white, and that we live closer and needed to be closer to the equator. However, the hypocrisy in all of that is he had white followers for a while in Costa Rica and Honduras. He would berate victims. He would make them have sex with him in front of others. He made them drink his bodily fluids to be one with him. He would physically assault women, and then right after that make them give him oral sex. He had, instead of being godlike, he gave every display of being demonic. And this is coming straight out of Georgia. So he transplanted from Honduras, Costa Rica, back to America, and now he has been found guilty for sexual assault and some other cases and charges, and he is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He needs to be off the streets. There is a little bit of an R. Kelly chasm in this scenario too, with similarities of manipulation, insecurity, not letting the young ladies have the freedom to move around. He would take their money, their identification, their ATM cards, and this was a classic case of somebody who is narcissistic, deranged, demonic, and needs to be off the streets. So this is all about Carbon Nation cult, straight out of Atlanta, with Eligio Bishop, who just got convicted and will serve the rest of his life in prison. I think we have way too many fatherless homes in today's time, especially in the urban community, and people are reaching out to other humans to find the answers. Where the answer, like in the book The Alchemist, the answer is from within. The gold and the treasure is from within, and you're not going to find it from without. And there is no vestibule or one-way street to God through another human being. We have to stop worshiping humans. We're just people. We're flawed. We need to stop worshiping entertainers and athletes. uh, deities, uh, godlike human beings that tell you that, the first thing you should use in your utilizing the five senses that God has given you, if somebody tells you they're the second coming of the Messiah, you need to run away from them quick, fast, in a hurry. There have been several cults and several scenarios like this where they talk about doomsday, the world ending. They can't give you a particular date or time, but it's part of the brainwashing technique to keep you there and sustainable for the cult leader. And this is an African American guy, 42 years old, and he is going to spend the rest of his life in jail. He had them working long hours with no pay. He kept them isolated. As I said, he was anti-white, and it's ironic that now that he was in the courtroom for these charges, he had a white female judge that was presiding over his case. He tried to fire his lawyer in the middle of the case. She said that you could do that, but you will not get a new attorney to continue to delay on what the end result would be. He had been incarcerated for over 2 years, and they were trying to get this case moving forward and get it off the docket and find out whether he was innocent or guilty. But let's think about it. He did all this brainwashing with the majority of women. He had a polygamous lifestyle. He was the one that was completely in control until he got to the courtroom with this white female judge, and she did not bend at all. And I think he took very hardcore offense to having to deal with this white female judge, and she stuck it to him. And so there was a certain level of humility that was garnered from this white judge expressing the law and how the order was going to be in her courtroom, and he couldn't stand it. He tried to fire his lawyer. He talked about the coronavirus being an issue. Mind you, when one of his members had caught the virus, and he told her to stop taking her medication, and she ended up dying. He didn't believe in modern medicine, STDs, or any of those kinds of things, and he wanted you to live your entire life through his message and his lifestyle. These are all telltale signs that the individuals that were believing this were going down the wrong direction. You're not going to find your way to God through another life-living human being, male or female. Your relationship with your spiritual connection is with you and that spiritual model, not through a human being, whether it's these prosperity preachers or anybody of that nature. Having a sound foundation psychologically, physically, spiritually, intellectually is what is of utmost importance, and you're not going to garner that through another human being. So there was mind manipulation and control, and he was completely taking advantage of these individuals, especially the women. You don't hear any negative comments about him having these allegations with the few men that were in his group. He also, before he started this cult, had been a stripper. He did not finish high school, and he was a gay male escort. So this gentleman had been all over the place, and what he was doing was projecting his insecurities onto others and using brainwashing and manipulation techniques to garner his own little community and taking advantage of every scenario, financially, physically, psychologically, sexually, and you can add the other narratives to this plot. So it's great that he has gotten convicted. He was a danger to society. These cult members will need long-term psychological counseling. Hopefully he can get some counseling while he's in prison for the rest of his life, because he is going to be a disruption while he's incarcerated, and will try these manipulation games with prisoners as he serves his time. So the state of Georgia needs to be very careful with this person that's now an inmate, because he will cause chaos and disruption within the prison system that he will be going to. This guy needed to be off the streets. It's an unfortunate circumstance with this African American 42-year-old man named Eligio Bishop, who thought he was God. None of us are God. We're just human beings trying to be a vessel of positivity, spirituality, and conviction. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.